Okay, Director Clovechok. It is just striking the hour of 2, so I would invite all of our presenters to please unmute their video feed, and I will turn things over to Director Clovechok to begin the meeting. It is 2 o'clock right on the nose, and so we probably can get started unless you'd like to wait for a few more minutes. We have had a few more people join in the last minute or so, so up to you if you want to just wait for a couple of minutes or just dive in.
Well, why don't we give folks one more minute and then I'll get started because we have lots of information to share and we certainly don't want to keep folks longer than we committed to keeping them. So we'll just kind of give folks, if you see more people popping in.
We do have several people just joining now, so I think it's great to
Perfect.
wait for another minute or so here.
Alrighty. I see they're still rolling in. Well, I will get started. I want to thank everyone for coming today and for taking the time out of what was a sunny afternoon. I'm just looking out my window here to see if it's still sunny. Um, so I just want to, before we get started, I'd like to just acknowledge that we are gathering today to discuss Cold Spring Creek. And I'm really mindful of the thousands of years in history and stories that could be told about this creek and the different events that have happened historically and that have really helped shape the landscape and what we see and know today. I am mindful of the beauty of the land and its creatures, and I'm deeply grateful to the people of the Akisna First Nation, along with the Chenal and Shuswap people who have been caretakers of these traditional and ancestral lands for thousands and thousands of years. So with that, I'd like to just take a moment and introduce the staff we have online today. I'm pleased to introduce to you Holly Ronnquist, our Chief Financial Officer, and Sean Tomlin, our CAO, Tom Smith, Engineering Services Supervisor, who's graciously stepped in today after the project lead, Kara Zandbergen, was unexpectedly unable to attend today, and Kevin Patterson, General Manager of Engineering and Environmental Services, has been a big supporter of this process in the background. And to not acknowledge him I would be remiss. And of course, how could we not thank Larry Duchek, without whom this meeting wouldn't take place, because none of us, even combined, I think, would have the technological ability and skill set to make all these moving parts work. So thank you to everyone for coming today. And just before we get started, I want to there's a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to have two key presentations of the construction update and an overview of all the financial aspects of the project. And we're going to hold off on questions until the end, and we're going to be using the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen for questions. There'll be an icon. If you look on the bottom, just click on it and type or text your question into the text box and then hit submit. And then we'll work through the questions with Larry's support as they come in. And also, please note that this meeting is being recorded for the purposes of sharing the project information, and the recording of this meeting is going to be posted on the project page, which is at engage.rdek.bc.ca/debris. And hopefully it'll be up by the end of this week and remain available as long as the project page is active. So if you have any questions about the collection of this information, please contact our corporate services department. And with that, I'm going to turn over the screen to our first speaker, which I believe is going to be Tom.
Sounds good. I'll just share my presentation here. Can you see that right now?
Tom, you're good to go.
Perfect. And yeah, feel free if I'm not speaking loud enough, please let me know. So thank you for the introduction, Director Clovechok. As was mentioned, my name is Tom Smith. I'm the Engineering Services Supervisor. So yeah, I will be covering this content, and as mentioned, if there is any questions at the end, I'll definitely try my best to answer said questions. In the case I may have to take them away, and I can once Kara is available, we can work through if it's a specifically technical question and try to get back to you. So with that, I will move on to getting into somewhat the agenda of this presentation. So here's kind of a brief summary of the content I'll be going through over about a dozen or so slides. I'll be focusing on the most recent, so the fall 2024 construction, the substantial completion, going through what that means, as well as then touching on the remaining work. So first here, so we have, we're going to go in order of sequence as kind of some of these larger items were constructed. So this is, for the project as a whole, this is the most, exciting part of the project, seeing some of these large pieces being coming together and being constructed. So the picture here that you see, this is the outlet structure completed with steel grillage installed. There's approximately 480 cubic meters of cast in place concrete in this structure, and it's approximately 8 meters for height, just for reference. So here's just a bit of a different perspective. On the left here in this picture, we have kind of the center most point, as well as in the right picture, just a different perspective from the downstream side looking upstream, or more, I'd say easterly of that structure. So while that outlet structure was being constructed, the creek was flowing through a temporary diversion around the construction area. Once the outlet structure was completed, the permanent diversion could then itself be completed, and the creek began flowing back through the outlet structure, which is what you're seeing here is kind of the final completion of that structure and the water flowing through. So on to another one here. So into what was definitely a really large part of the construction process is, and kind of the most exciting for ourselves on the engineering side, is the construction of the larger barrier itself, and was kind of referred to as the main event, which began in late September. So this barrier is constructed of roller compacted concrete, so which is what this abbreviation is here, this RCC. Roller compacted concrete is a concrete mixture that's placed in lifts and compacted. It's commonly used material for dam construction, and was selected for this project because of its constructed cost, so durability, which is essentially so lower maintenance costs, and the strength. For this project, the concrete was mixed at a plant set up by the Fairmont Airport, and then was logistically it was trucked to site using dump trucks. So there's two sections of the RCC barrier, as you can see here, which and kind of different approaches is how they were constructed. So the bottom portion of the barrier, which you can see here on the right, or kind of to the north side of the structure, is constructed with a 1-to-1 slope and doesn't require any framework. And then the upper portion has vertical walls, which you could see on the left-hand side, which this is a picture from further along in construction. So it has a 1-to-1 slope, and then it has a vertical wall, which is placed inside forms. So just to walk through kind of the general sequence of events for the RCC barrier itself. So looking at the picture here, so once the bottom 1-to-1 section on the close side here is completed, the RCC workers then focused on the bottom section to the right side or the north side of the barrier. Once when that was going on, then formwork, as you can see here, started being aligned so that the vertical section on this side could then be, then RCC could continue on that section. Once that formwork and once that was completed, they moved on to the north or the right side of the barrier to complete the formwork and then the RCC placement. And just for some perspective, yeah, through this entire RCC process on both sides of the barrier, we had about 9,000 cubic meters of roller compacted concrete in total placed. So here's just another photo. This is looking north, looking to the, in the last photo, looking to the right side of the structure, which is just showing at the point where they had formwork and we were vertically placing RCC. Yeah, on to the next one. So just to talk a little bit more about the process. So there's really quite very strict guidelines with regards to placing the RCC regards and specifically around temperature, allowable precipitation. So once the RCC is placed, it needs to be protected and kept at certain temperatures for it to cure. Our contractor and consultants work extremely hard to keep construction moving forward while meeting the construction specifications during some of these what became colder and challenging conditions. So the picture on this slide is looking somewhat east-southeast from the downstream side of the barrier. Okay, here's just another perspective and kind of what is the next step and pretty much where we are now. So this is a picture of the completed barrier. And this is looking more southerly from the upstream side of the barrier. It's currently covered in insulation to protect the concrete from the cold winter weather until the core of the structure approaches the temperature at the external component of the structure. So from looking at the picture here, what is the northern side or the closest side in the picture, this is insulation, a white foam insulation that was used. And you can see on the southern part or furthest away in the picture, they used a slightly different mechanism, which was insulated layers of tarps with both of them, meeting specifications. And this will be removed in spring. So at the start of the presentation, I mentioned the term substantial completion. So I just want to run through what that means because it is a very important term. And used in all construction projects. So it's a contract term that's used to describe the point of which a project meets really two requirements, which I've highlighted here. Firstly is that the project functions as it's intended. So for this project, it means that the structure will direct creek flow into the basin and the barrier and outlet structure will contain the debris should an event occur. So that's primary. So really, is it meeting the scope or intent of the project? And then secondly, mentioned here, or shown here is monetary value. So has it reached this monetary goal? So essentially what that is, it's a milestone when the project reaches a specific percentage completed of the remaining contract amount. So just to get into reference some dates and when kind of was planned and actual completed substantial completion. So the original date in the contract documents is September 30th of 2024 for substantial completion. So through this project and most construction projects, there's delays, legitimate delays, and complications that can extend the date of substantial completion without any penalty to the contractor. There were some delays in this project associated with weather, unexpected ground conditions, and changes to the work required. These delays did add some time to the contract and the substantial completion date for those delays were accounted, which then pushed the revised contractual date to October 29th of 2024. So almost 30 days. The contractor achieved substantial completion on December 31st. So after that revised date, at this point, all major components of the construction have been completed, so that the project would function as planned to contain debris should an event occur. So as I touched on before, so this included the creek diversion and channel, the outlet structure, and the roller compacted concrete barrier. So just to reiterate, if there was an event, this barrier is now functional and in place. With saying that, there is still some work remaining to be completed this spring as soon as weather allows. And we'll include a few things listed here. So one is installing safety railing along the top of the barrier, as well as securing security fencing on either end of the barrier, kind of at the north and south end. There is some remaining site cleanup, which includes removing all of the insulation from the barrier, as well as all that formwork that's currently in place. There will be some minor earthwork, so there will be some heavy equipment in there doing some cleanup and finalization of the project work. And then finally, there will be some seeding in some of the disturbed areas. And then on the last item here, we touch on project completion documents. So there is quite a few items there. You know, there's a multitude of, one is updating the risk maps that have previously been completed. You know, there's statutory right-of-way agreement that needs to be finalized between us and Fairmont Hot Springs Resort. And, you know, there's finalizing any remaining claims and claim reporting with some of the grants that we've received. There's kind of a long laundry list in order to close out this project. And just to note it, yeah, with saying that, some of the work at site is anticipated to be completed early this summer. And then, yeah, just some final notes on this here, just on the last slide, just to kind of wrap this up. So just to reiterate, I know we've mentioned some communications and on the project site. Excuse me. Please stay out of the site. It is still a construction site. While there isn't any construction ongoing at this time, it is still a construction site. So there are hazards on the ground, some of which now would be covered by snow, and access to the top of the barrier is not permitted. Just to touch on a lot of the individuals we worked with. So just want to say a thank you to McKay Contracting and McLady Engineering, their teams and subcontractors and everybody who came to the table to go through and accomplish this big piece of work. So I've focused more on the construction highlights in this short amount of time, but there were obviously you know, a ton of tasks were completed in order to get to this point in order to show these highlights. This was a complex project, and there was you know, quite a few challenges and a lot of things we could overcome. So also to touch, so Fairmont Hot Springs Resort have been you know, incredibly cooperative partner as we work through the construction and contributed where they could to find solutions and work with us. And then and of course the community itself of Fairmont Hot Springs, so Fairmont. So thank you for your patience with this large project happening, you know, right in your your backyard. It was appreciated, so thank you. And I think that's kind of all I had to say at this point. So
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Tom. That was very thorough. Before we get started with Holly, I just want to remind folks that if you have questions for Tom, please click on the icon at the bottom of your screen. If it's not there right now, just move your mouse and it should pop up with some icons, and click on the Q&A and enter your question there. And then when Holly is finished, you can enter questions for her, and then we will work at getting your questions answered to the best of our ability. Anyway, so with that, I will turn it over to Holly.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming this afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen. All right. So as we approach the wrap up of the Cold Spring Creek Flood Mitigation Project, Finance has been working with the engineering team to reconcile capital costs and also the funding sources. So it's hard to believe that we're in the 6th year of this project. The first expenditures were in 2020, and that was with UBCM Phase 1 funding, and the spending will continue about halfway through this year. So when we did the public presentation in November of 23, we had just increased the construction budget, and we were looking at an overall cost of 13.6 million. So that's this column right here. So the funding changed quite a bit since then. At the time in November 2023, we were sitting with the community having 150,000 from phase 1 and then $1 million for phase 2. So 1.1 million, and that was 8.5% of the construction budget. So as I say, things have changed quite a bit. And now the community, their responsibility is 150,000 for phase 1 of the UBCM grant. But because we received other grant funding, the $1 million responsibility of the community is no longer required. So what happened is that we received $2 million from the UBCM climate adaptation funding. So with that, we were able to reduce the service area portion from $1 million to none, and the growing communities fund portion from 1.5 million to $500,000. And with that, so the community share is 1.1%. So at the time, when we were back in 2023, this 150,000, we thought that we were going to actually have to short-term borrow for that. But because of the changes to the operating budget with not having debenture payments on the $1 million, we were able to pay that without having any debenture borrowing for that at all. So also with the increase of taxation to 489,000. Here we go. So it's important to recognize that funding from the service area was not just for the capital costs. So we have the capital cost here, but there were also administrative costs that we couldn't get project funding through grants for. And those costs were ineligible project costs for phase 2, which was survey and legal costs related to the new structure. That was 30,000. We also had $25,000 in 2024 for cash flow interest and $47,000 coming up for cash flow interest in 2025. So the initial estimate of the cash flow interest was $55,000 in 2024. And the fact that the cash flow interest came in at 24,000 is a really good news story. It came in at 25,000 on over a $9 million worth of expenditures. So it's a great outcome, and it happened because the province came through with their word where they would speed up the process of getting those grant claims reviewed and the money in the bank. So we were able to pay that cash borrowing down as the payments came in. And we also saw interest rates come down a little bit, so that helped quite a bit. So for 2025, the 47,000, when we did our 2023 update, what we didn't realize is that the ADRM grant, so that was the really big $9.7 million grant, they would not pay out the grant on the construction holdbacks, so the 10% construction holdbacks as you go through the process of paying. They won't pay those out until the project's complete, all the invoicing is in, all the claims are sent, the inspections are done, and the reports are all complete. So with that, the new UBCM grant that we received with the climate adaptation grant, $2 million, they gave us $1 million up front, but the other $1 million will be paid on full on completion of the reporting. So we're looking at about 2.2 million that we need cash flow funding for in 2025. The interest rate is around 4.25% now, and the projected timeline is right through until the end of June. And so until we get all of the I's dotted and the T's crossed, we're not going to get that funding from those two sources. So looking back to the amended budget, so the total here is 102,000. So the 150,000 for the capital plus the administrative costs, the community share is 252,000 altogether. And if you put that against the capital cost of 13.6 million, it's 1.85%. So when we look back at 2023, we knew that we would have these costs, but not to the magnitude, and we were estimating 99,000. So we're pretty close on that. Ooh, killed it. Hold on one moment, please. I just lost my presentation. Okay, can you see that? Wow, one click too many. This thing is unforgivable. There we go. Okay, so as far as the taxes go for 2025, we're looking at $489,000. So that tax requisition is unchanged from 2024. And that's because the service area no longer has to pay that principal and debt interest payment for the borrowing that we were thinking was going to be 1.1 million. And we also had the reduction in the interest costs. And we had some savings from 2024. So the cost per average residential is estimated to be $374, and that's on a principal residence that's assessed at just under 514,000. So it's a decrease of $2. So the reason for the $2 decrease is new development that came online in 2024. So that increases the assessment value, and so the new folks that are in are helping to pay towards this project. The mill rate we're looking at right now is 73 cents per thousand of assessment, and the maximum was 90 cents per thousand. And last year, the mill rate was 75 cents per thousand. So this is all based on the completed roll from the BC assessment, and we're waiting for the revised roll. It comes in at the end of March. That's the one that the taxes happen on. So there might be a small change here, but I'm not expecting too much to change. So given the capital and operating challenges of this service, we really do need to keep the taxation at least 489,000 for the foreseeable future. And in the event that we do require future mitigation projects, the taxation maximum may have to increase. So the 2025 to 2029 financial plan for this service will provide further information related to the operating costs, taxation, and reserve contributions. And there'll be a full report included in the budget information package, and that goes out after the draft budget is reviewed by board in February. It's right after that when our public consultation process starts, and it will be posted in its entirety, of which this will be a part of, in the Engage page for the RDEK. And that's all the information that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Great, thanks, Holly. Sorry about that. I was trying to find my unmute. So now I think I'm going to ask folks if you have questions for Holly or something more has arisen for Tom. Please enter your questions, and we will we'll work through them. And I'm going to ask Larry to facilitate the Q&A session.
You bet. So right before the meeting started, I was having a cookie and it's stuck. So I'm a little froggy. So my apologies if I inadvertently cough here. But the first question, and actually I'm really glad that this question was asked because we spent a lot of time talking about the structure itself. But the first question is just if we could provide an overview for how it actually is going to work. And so I thought that was a really great question. So Tom, that one would be for you.
Sure. And yeah, if it's okay, I might even share my screen to show a bit of a diagram just to help better answer the question. So just
That would be great.
give me 1 sec here. Sure. So yeah, I had so I believe this picture was likely shown at a previous presentation, but the gist is that any accumulation of debris and various sizes of rock that would come down would now accumulate in this debris basin, which is upstream of the new barrier, which thereby quite a large deposition area now, as well as then the water would continue to flow and come through the outlet structure, which then, as I was showing in some pictures, have, to minimize any sort of debris coming through there. The intent is then, depending on the amount of debris that we see over time depositing, we will then have our own maintenance plan to go in and remove that debris, I guess, over time as it comes. So that's really it, is just we now have a nice catchment area to collect all of the debris that comes in, and by using what is now this new access road to come in with heavy equipment to remove it as it builds up over time. But the structure itself allows it to be deposited and then to come through the barrier itself.
Great.
Super.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Moving on to the next question. What is the target date for completion of the new risk mitigation plan? And I'm wondering if that is not asking about the hazard risk vulnerability assessment that is going on for Fairmont Creek, unless there's a new risk mitigation plan for Cold Spring Creek that I'm not aware of.
So that's how I somewhat interpret it as well, is I would assume that was more directed to Fairmont Creek. So I can talk to that if it's, so we do currently have a consultant working through that right now, and it is anticipated to get kind of a rough draft back here in the spring, to be ideally completed here before the summer as well.
Super. Thank you. And the next question is, the original proposal call should have included the design and construction of the debris flow barrier and the downstream results. Other than work remaining, including the risk maps, the other remaining work does not affect downstream. Why can we not see a draft of required setbacks and other potential mitigation required downstream ? Before it goes to board ? So I think the question here may be related partially to development. Sean, I'm not sure if you might have something to contribute there, or Tom, if you're able to speak to the other separate process that's happening in the planning side of things, but I believe that this one is focused more on the development side of things. Director Clovechok, you may have some knowledge to contribute there as well.
Yeah, I think
I'll let Sean go ahead with that one if he wants to start.
Oh, sure. I guess I'll start off. I think you're right, Laurie. I believe that question is probably about the development side of it. And yeah, so the first part about including the design and construction, that I'm not sure that the engineer designing this would have been the right one to be outlining what all the downstream impacts are. Of course, this is designed to mitigate those. So that is a separate project that's underway right now. That's reviewing the reports that have been done so far, and we'll be coming up with a plan as to how that should apply to each to development applications or approvals for different properties within the different risk zones. But certainly, with the design, it did forecast what the changes to those risk zones would look like to some degree.
Thank you, Sean. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Director Clovechok. I know that the development side of this is a separate project, as Sean mentioned, and it's the Fairmont Hazard Development Guidance. Justin Cook is the project lead on that project. essentially really the only thing we could contribute that might help Mr. Kerr's question here is with regard to the timeline. I'm not sure if that would be helpful, but I certainly could have Justin contribute something to the timeline on that and provide information on where people that are interested in that development project can get it. So I'm not sure if you would like me to do that, Director Clovechok, to get Justin to speak to the timeline.
Yeah, I think in order to stick to the project that we've got at hand here and not to kind of divert, no pun intended, from that conversation, I think if Mr. Kerr would like to speak directly to Justin, we can certainly put them in touch with each other and get more of that information. I think it's fair to say until the works were completed, the full impact on future development guidelines and things like setbacks and that sort of thing would only be anticipated and projected once the work is done. Then obviously we're going to have a much better idea, more factual, rather than having to keep changing things as this project went forward. So let's stick to this project and connect Mr. Kerr and Justin Cooks.
Sounds great. So for people watching and that are maybe additionally interested, Justin's email address is jcook, so jcook@rdek.bc.ca. And the project page is on engage.rdek.bc.ca. It is, if you type in engage.rdek.bc.ca/Fairmont Guidance Project, or if you look for that on the landing page, you'll see that there. Updated information and an updated timeline will be coming, and actually I'm anticipating to have that project updated after the February board meeting. We do have, I think, a request coming to board at the next board meeting where the board will help determine and narrow down some of those timelines. So it would probably be a bit premature to share any timelines until the board has given us a staff direction, but certainly that meeting will be open to the public for viewing, and you'll be able to see the accompanying reports as well. So hopefully those two resources are helpful for you. Number one, on the Engage project page, engage.rdek.bc.ca/Fairmont Guidance Project. And then the second resource is during the February board meetings. You can look at the agenda items or watch for communications that come out following that meeting with regard to that project. And I don't see any additional questions. If people do have additional questions, if you would like to ask them, I believe that we've answered the questions that have been asked so far.
All right, seeing none. Thank you, Laree.
I do see that someone has tried to raise their hand. We do need to use the Q&A tool for questions. So if you could just, at the bottom of your screen, it's to the right of the green share button. If you look at the icons, you can ask the Q&A there. And in the meantime, we do have another question that has come in, and it is, I think, Holly, this one will be keyed in toward you. It's related to the financial aspect of the project. We are now paying some $500 per 500,000 of assessed value, and with two projects in the future, we will pay 1,000 ?
Okay.
And I can repeat the question if you'd like.
No,
We're
I
now
see it.
paying.
I
Okay,
see it.
perfect.
It's from Florence. Okay, so in 2024, it was $376. So I think maybe it could be, when you're looking at those numbers, the numbers that I'm showing don't include the collection fee from the province, which is 5.25%. So last year that would have brought it up to $396,000 or $396 on the average residential. And the average residential was lower. It was about $499, I believe. So I'm not sure where the exact $500 number arrives at. So this year we're looking at $374, and in the future, like if you're talking about like a future project, it's pretty hard to tell right now. We've put something in the financial plan for a future project just to have it on the radar, but we would have to know how much the cost is and what the taxation and assessment makeup of the community is at that time. So I don't know if it would double. I'm not quite sure. I mean, we are building reserves as we go through in the next 5 years. So that would definitely help towards the cost of the next project if we need to do one.
Okay, super. Thank you. And if there are more questions, certainly would encourage people to use that Q&A tool. Director Clovechok, I'm not sure if there's anything else in the absence of additional questions coming in that you wanted to share. Certainly from our perspective, I do want to make sure that we emphasize that because substantial completion has been achieved, we are not at final completion, but we do intend to have fulsome communications with the community right through the substantial and final completion. So this meeting today is intended to be a project update. We committed to, when we got to this point, having the meeting with the community, but we certainly will continue with communication throughout. So that is the that's really important for people to know, that this isn't the end of the communication. And certainly when we do reach final completion, we are anticipating to have some kind of community wrap up of some sort. What that will look like, I don't know, but just wanted people to know that that is on the radar. And I do have a comment that has come in. It's not a question, but I certainly, Dave, appreciate you filling out the tool here. And that is just to congratulate the noted fiscal management of the project positively, particularly as related to the individual residential impacts. Well done. So that is passed along to this team, and certainly appreciate those comments, Dave.
Well, thank you, Larry and Tom and Holly and Sean for providing all the information today and support. And Dave, that was a perfect wrap up. I couldn't have done it better myself. I just want to acknowledge that, you know, the community has been incredibly patient with this project, and it's really, really important to public safety, and we all appreciate the support that we've received. And I really want to acknowledge the diligence that both our engineering staff led by Kara and our finance staff led by Holly, and in particular Holly, how well Holly and Kara have worked together to manage both the construction and the engineering feat and the financial. It's unfortunately, I don't think it's often where you can say, you know, government is coming in pretty much on time, and we're looking like on budget on a project of this magnitude. So, you know, they have worked very hard for the community. I'm really, really proud of the work that they've done. You know, last year in November, when we said and we committed to looking for more grants, and we committed to that. I just want to acknowledge the fact that applying for those grants, that extra 2 million obviously has made a huge difference, but applying for them is also no easy task and is incredibly time consuming and technical. And I just want to acknowledge both Kara and Holly for the work that they did looking for those funds and being successful in the application. And with that, as Louise said, this is not the last conversation we're going to be having about this project. But hopefully the next one will be a celebration of completion. And we'll keep you posted on how that's going to look. So thanks everyone for giving us your time this afternoon. And it's going to seem very cold, but we're just going to disappear off your screens. So thanks for your attention this afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good day.